My next guest is one of the clarion voices when it comes to understanding what's happening in China and China's reach to the world, the Belt and Road Initiative, all the things they're involved with. He's spent his professional life understanding, reviewing, and explaining to the world the dangers of the Chinese Communist Party. He's the author of the recently released Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America, as well as the coming collapse of China and China is Going to War, and several different books, all worth reading. Gordon G. Chang joining me now. Gordon, nice to see you this morning.
Thank you so much, Steve.
A lot going on with China. By the way, you can find Gordon on Twitter, X if you prefer, at Gordon G. Chang. I suggest you follow him. He's got hundreds of thousands of followers for the reasons we just described and laid out, because he understands the Chinese Communist Party at a level that is important to us right now. Gordon, let's talk about the trade war, first of all. China, the only country that decided to step up, raise tariffs on the United States to 125%. Donald Trump said, that's fine. You can do that. They raised the tariffs on some items to 145%. Now, it doesn't include computers or iPhones or some other different items, but this is a serious exchange of economic warfare, isn't it?
It certainly is. And at the tariff rates that now apply, essentially almost all the trade between China and the United States will stop, except, of course, for the electronics, which President Trump has given an exemption for. But by the way, you know, the Chinese just crowed when Trump announced the exemption for electronics, said, oh, the president's backing down. Well, I don't think so, because we're going to see what the new tariffs on electronics are going to be. And this is a trade war, but this is a all-encompassing struggle between China and the United States, because China has talked about the U.S. as an enemy. I mean, we only say competitor or adversary, but we should be talking about China in the same terms that it talks about us. And that means this is an existential struggle, not because we want it, Steve, but because the Chinese believe it is. And because the Chinese believe it is, it is.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it makes you wonder about the mistakes made by political leaders in the United States. First, bringing in China into the world of civilized nations in 1972. Then basically walking them in to the World Trade Organization, where look, China has abused everybody. They steal intellectual property from everybody. They undercut and destroy markets for everybody, not just the United States. So this response from Donald Trump, to me, long overdue. It is necessary, and it's going to create some financial pain. But it would seem to me that we have the upper hand. We're still the biggest dog on the block when it comes to economies in the world. Can China really hang on? If all trade with the United States stops, what does it do to China?
Well, China's economy would fail. It already is failing, Steve. It's not growing at the 5.0% pace that they reported for 2024. It's probably about zero. And as we saw from the March price signals, it is a country in deflation, which means if there is growth, which I doubt, it can't be robust. The other thing is that China's having its 2008 downturn now. In 2008, it didn't want a recession, so it overstimulated, took on a lot of debt. Now it's got to figure out what to do with that debt, and it really can't. So you have those two things occurring. You have the property market collapse, and you have President Trump's tariffs. So China is right now in a world of hurt. The only way they get out of this is if they convince Trump to back down. But Trump, as you point out, holds the high cards. We're the bigger economy. We're the trade deficit economy. We've got all the leverage.
We do. And so, I mean, how long? I mean, it's going to hurt some American businesses. There's no question, right? We're going to feel some pain. I see that. I know this is a big concern to you, Gordon. But PlayStation 5s just got 30% more expensive. So me too. The PS5 right here. I just saw a bulletin go up. Oh, it's the tariffs. It's Sony trying to cash in and so on. So whatever it is.
Yeah.
But really, this is something that it's either we do it now or we do it later. You're going to pay the price sooner or later, aren't we? I mean, we've gotten ourselves entangled in a place that we need to clean up our act. We can't allow this economic abuse to continue, right?
You're absolutely right about that. You know, we've had decades of deeply misguided trade policy, which has been injurious to the American Republic. And so, of course, there's going to be pain to get out of this. But let's do it now because we are in a very strong position. And also, if we delay it, it's going to get even worse. So it's important to do this now. And we should all applaud President Trump for taking this on.
Yeah. There's two areas I want to discuss with you before we hit a break. Gordon giving us some extra time this morning. So after the break, we're going to talk about military buildup and other things. But until we get there, I want to talk about two areas of concern for me. Rare earth minerals, which really are not rare, but China has about 85% of the facilities that can turn those rare earth elements into useful products. The refining is about 85% of the world's refinery rates. But we have those same elements here in America. We just need to have refineries to push them through. True or false?
True. Those rare earths, they're around the world. A lot of them are in Canada, in Saskatchewan, Australia. It just requires political will to mine them, get them out of the earth, and to process them. Processing is dirty, which is one of the reasons why we've sort of outsourced it to China. But we can't do that because China is now restricting rare earth exports to the U.S. And so we've got to understand that this is a trade tool that they're using, and we've now got to dig our own and process our own.
Well, we've got plenty of them in places. In fact, here in Michigan, where I am, we've got rare earth. In Minnesota, you've got plenty of them. Yes, Saskatchewan too, but I think we should have our own and stop relying on any foreign entity for important. I mean, rare earths are critical for the future. So we might as well have control of our future and our hand on the wheel. And speaking of that, here's the second thing I want to talk to you about. Before I met you, Gordon, which I've known you for a number of years now, and I appreciate that. But before I met you, I read the book China RX, and I don't think the situation has gotten any better. The pharmaceuticals, the book China RX. If you haven't read it, read it. It'll frighten you because it means that all of our pharmaceuticals, our prescription medications, 90% of them have elements that come from China. We should not allow the Chinese Communist Party to control the medications we need in America, correct?
Absolutely. Rosemary Gibson, who wrote that book, is a hero. President Trump, at the end of his first term, tried to bring APIs, active pharmaceutical ingredients, back into the U.S. The effort was flawed, and because he wasn't reelected, he couldn't continue it. But now that he's back in the White House, I hope that he starts this again because we cannot rely on anybody. We can't even rely on our friends because in the first days of the pandemic, Australia wouldn't sell us stuff. And I can understand why. They needed it for themselves, but it taught us a lesson that we need to make in the U.S. things that are critical to the American people, which include, and especially at the top of the list, our medicines.
Absolutely true. We don't even have antibiotics here. And I'll just give this quick story and then we'll go to break. But in 2004, the last antibiotic factory in America went out of business. Why? Because China had bought the antibiotics, the penicillin plants, if you will, around the globe and dropped the price intentionally to destroy that company in New York. And they were successful. We need to take our pharmaceuticals seriously, our national security seriously, and I think we're doing that. Gordon G. Chang with me. You can find him on X at Gordon G. Chang. He just released the book Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. You should look that up. We're going to talk about the military buildup in China and all the things we're doing in that regard after the break here on the Steve Gruber Show. All right, back to it now with Gordon G. Chang. Find him on Twitter at Gordon G. Chang. Look, Gordon, as we go through this trade war, the other idea is a real war, a shooting war. I mean, you look at the Chinese investments by way of the Belt and Road Initiative, and you look at their investments in Africa, South America, Central America, where I just visited and saw and heard about the Chinese investments there. They're putting their tentacles into the whole world. And maybe the only way to stop that expansion is through this correction of economic pillory. I mean, they steal from everybody. They take money from everybody, Gordon. Maybe Donald Trump is doing the one thing that can cause China to atrophy. What do you think?
Absolutely. And the reason is that China's right now suffering from imperial overstretch. It has just gone too far. Its ambitions have outrun its resources. This is the time where we have to start defending ourselves. So this is the perfect moment, Steve.
So what about the Chinese military buildup? What can you tell the folks about their Blue Water Navy, about their aspirations for the Arctic, their aspirations for space exploration and dominance. I mean, China has all these aspirations here and beyond this world as well.
Well, yes, Chinese officials, Xi Jinping, have been trying to push this notion that China is the world's only sovereign state, that the moon and Mars are sovereign Chinese territory, that Xi Jinping is the world's only legitimate ruler. We hear this and we think it's ridiculous, it's ludicrous, but that's what Xi Jinping thinks. And when you look at his actions, you can see that he acts that way. They are preparing for war, and it's a total society mobilization. It's not just the military, it's civilians as well. They're calling up reservists. They're taking over civilian factories to make war material. They are standing up militia units in state enterprises. This is everybody goes to wartime in China.
No, let me ask you this, because this is a question that I asked, and I'd like your perspective. Very important. Xi Jinping, on his heels, because what Donald Trump did here, he took the bait. Donald Trump said, we paused the tariffs on every other country for 90 days, and they claim they have 130 countries coming to the table right now. I have no reason not to believe that. Can Xi Jinping survive this? Can dictator Xi survive this, or does he just disappear one day? I realize he's taken step-by-step plans to get rid of all of his adversaries inside the Chinese Communist Party, but that notwithstanding, you still have the military. You have generals. You have the Chinese Communist Party as an entity. If Xi fails here, does he survive it?
I actually don't think so, because he's got total accountability, and he got that by taking power from everybody else. When he became the general secretary of the Communist Party in late 2012, it was a consensual political system where no leader got too much credit or too much blame because everybody shared in the decisions. By taking power from everybody else, he's got nobody else to blame. And we can see at the top of the Chinese military right now, severe infighting, where I think that Xi Jinping's enemies are sacking Xi Jinping's loyalists, which means he's probably lost full control of the military right now. And that's a danger sign for China's leader.
So he's already on unsteady ground.
I think so. Now, I have to say my view is the minority one. Almost everybody believes that Xi Jinping is in complete control. But I see signs of instability that are inconsistent with the majority narrative.
So, is there anybody in your estimation that if he is disappeared, or whatever may happen, who's a successor? Who is next in line? Is there anybody that comes to mind, or is it a free-for-all?
It's a free-for-all, and it's because when Xi Jinping took power, there were rules, guidelines, and norms on the succession of power, and everyone had fixed terms, and it all was sort of settled. Xi Jinping has junked all those rules, which means we have no idea who could become the next leader of China. It could be anybody. And in Chinese imperial history, we saw the most unlikely characters become emperor because they just rose out of nowhere. Well, the same thing could happen today. And by the way, it doesn't have to be somebody. It could be nobody.
Let me just ask you one more thing, a bit unrelated, but I am interested in your take on this. Mark Zuckerberg in a federal court today, as Meta could be dismembered. One of the things that's come up recently is his close ties to the CCP and China dictating rules to Facebook, to Instagram, to some of these companies. How close was Mark Zuckerberg to the CCP?
I think he was really close. He tried to get close to Xi Jinping. He tried to make, he named his daughter after some sort of Chinese character or something.
Whatever.
I believe. It was sort of really suck up time to Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping didn't respond, though, fortunately. So now Mark Zuckerberg is on the good side, but that was only because he was rejected.
He was snubbed, yeah. Gordon G. Chang, you follow him on Twitter. If you want to stay up to date on what's happening with China on the economic front, on the military front, all of it. Gordon, I appreciate your insights. They're invaluable to me and to the listeners and viewers of this program. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Steve. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you. Find the book, Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. And he's not wrong. There's this saying in Mandarin, which I cannot do for you. Everything under heaven is the rough translation. And that's the way dictator Xi looks at the world. Everything under heaven is China's. You know, you hear about Taiwan being a province in waiting. He looks at every country in the world, including the United States, as a province in waiting. That's the basic philosophy. And again, it's the rough translation, everything under heaven. Gordon G. Chang, a remarkable resource to have here. I'm glad we have him. It's just terrific. I'm going to take a break. I'll be back with an update on sports after this.